Walk you through this merge request for adding a front-end component viewer to GitLab. So the idea is we should be able to render any single component on this page and see what it looks like in a sort of real environment. So for example, we have a nav item currently rendered. We can render the brand logo, so then we can see the brand logo by itself. We can make changes to it and we can see how it reacts. So there's some interesting points here. Let's find one that's more useful. Okay, so create menu. We can see all of the different URLs that this component is rendered on. And the way we get that is through some end-to-end test scraping, which I'll get into in the next video, to be honest. I'll just show you how this works with the data we've got. So you can render this component, you can select the URL, and depending on the URL, it might change how it looks, because each URL has its own styling. These are the style sheets that are loaded into this URL, which has the group, project, whatever else. But for this URL, these are the style sheets that are applied to the page, and that might change how the component is rendered. These style sheets are, when you select the URL, these style sheets are loaded into the page, which you can verify here. So then we can see what the component actually looks like in a real life example. It also gets the props it also scrapes the props from this, and it acts the same way it would in real life. So what you're seeing is the component rendered the same way it is on that exact URL with those props. They're the props that it's given. So you can change the props, you can change the provide. So you can change this to true, if we can spell it. You have to reload the provide, the props change automatically, and then yeah, it'll look different depending on the provide. Right. Okay, so you can change the props, you can change the provide, you can see the styles that are applied. This is also useful because what we're doing is we're importing the style sheets from this address, so it is what is running in your local GDK environment. So if you make a change to application SCSS, you're going to see it live in this page, and same for any of these. There's also some inline styling, so sometimes a component might have some styling from its parent, so they are also included here. That's what these are. You can't change them, but it's important to know that on some URLs you might have, so this is like a component that might be rendered as a child, and the parent has some inline, some specific styling that it's inheriting from that parent, and that's what these are. Yeah, that's how it works. There's some limitations, like not every component is here. There's also a problem where, so for this component, it requires the Vuex store to be initiated, but we're not doing that, so it doesn't work. But this is it's a work in progress. That's one of the limitations. So the limitations are we only have the components that are rendered within our end-to-end tests, and components with the Vuex store aren't working yet. But yeah, that's how it works. So I'll walk you through how it works in the code also. Now, so this here is a special part. So the way we get this data is we have another, let me show you the other work in progress merge request. This is a Vue end-to-end test scraper. So this merge request is requesting that we put it into the GTK, and essentially what it does is it injects a so it injects into every Vue component that on mount it should record its props and provide information and the URL and the styling on that URL, and we record it, which I'll go into more detail on this merge request. But the end result of this scraping, after we run all of our tests, is this data JSON and a style JSON, which maps the each URL to that's not sorry. The style JSON maps the URL to like which style sheets are loaded into this URL. So for example, on this URL that we're on the merge requests, we have style sheets loaded into this specific URL, and that's what it's recording, right? So this one is another interesting one. We have this component mapping. So the way this works is we have our component viewer, which is the parent, and it renders the like the mock props editor and all the other information, and then it renders this special renderer. What it does is it can load any component that's in GitLab. Now this is a little bit funny because it's a because we can't just load any component, it's a security risk. What we have is this component mapping, which might be easier to show you in code. Component mapping. So this has every single Vue component in GitLab. It names the component by its file path, and then it imports that component, and it's separated from, so component mapping is separated from the component renderer, so that we can have a tool that runs and updates the component mapping, so that we have, so if we remove a component, we remove it from this component mapping, and if we create a new component, we can add it to this component mapping. Bear with me, but I'll show you how that works. This one I'm really open to feedback on because I'm not sure how we should best do it. But at the moment what I've got is in the tooling file folder, which is where we update translations. What this tool does is it looks at all of the components in the GitLab project, and it updates the component mapping so that it's up to date. Okay, so mock props editor, it should be understandable. The other things here, all it's doing is adding a URL that we can access front-end components. We can block this in production, or we can, I don't think it would be any harm to run it in production, because then you can see what the components look like in production, but it's not designed for production, so we can put a if development environment, only run it in development environment. But yeah, I'm open to options there. All it's doing is running this Vue component, so everything else is pretty bare bones. But yeah, that's the way it works. That's what it does. And if you want to know more about the Vue end-to-end scraper, you can follow the link in the merge request and see how that works there. Thanks.